Good afternoon, everyone. It's about 5 minutes past 1 o'clock, and welcome to our April seminar series. My name is Errol Tutumler, as many of you know me, but I'm by default here the person to introduce my PhD student, again, Hassan Kazmee, who's been working on this project with us now for a little over a year, maybe about almost, this is our second year, but Hassan has been around since 2010, almost 4 years, and this is Hassan's PhD project. So earlier on this week, we had a TRP meeting in this ICT project, which is titled Evaluation of Aggregate Subgrade Materials Used as Pavement Subgrade and Granular Base. Indeed, this project is aiming to actually come up with specification validations on the aggregate subgrade used in the state of Illinois, and he will primarily tell you about the progress we've made, and well, the rest of the progress will be completing all the test sections constructed last year, which is outside where the Atlas machine is stationed. So without further ado, I think I'll turn it over to Hassan to give you the overview and where we are in the project.
Thank you, Professor Tutumler. Welcome to my presentation. Today I will be talking about an ICT project, evaluation of aggregate subgrade materials used as pavement subgrade or granular subbase. For this project, the TRP chair is Sheila Bashir, and the principal investigator is obviously Professor Errol Tutumler. So first I will go with the research needs statements. The remedial thickness versus the CBR or IBV chart in the subgrade stability manual does not consider the large size granular materials as aggregate subgrade. So aggregate subgrade materials, it can be large size virgin aggregates like primary crusher on aggregates, recycled materials, large size or the smaller size. We have used both sides of recycled materials in this project. So there is a need for evaluating field performance of the selected most commonly utilized aggregate subgrade materials for walking platform and subbase applications in the low volume roads, as well as developing end performance based material specifications. Research objectives: development of the characterization technique for aggregate subgrade materials in terms of source, composition, particle size and shape parameters. Evaluate field performance of the most commonly utilized aggregate subgrade materials for unsurfaced walking platform application, as well as asphalt surface low volume roads, and revise and develop material specifications governing the use of these materials in pavement applications. This is the current specification that we have. The CaO2 material is almost similar to the CA6 gradation with larger top size. And then we have CSO1. This is the recycled concrete or the rubberized concrete. The CSO2 is a large size, that means 6-inch top size primary crusher on aggregates, and RRO1 is almost like ballast size aggregates. Those are virgin aggregates as well. So task 1, establishing types and compositions of aggregate subgrade materials in Illinois. For this, we are using crushed gravel, crushed stone, and crushed concrete as specified as CSO1, CSO2, and RRO1. Then we have used crushed RAP, recycled asphalt pavement aggregates. Then developing a methodology to characterize the size and shape properties using the University of Illinois Aggregate Image Analyzer. And these are the few materials, these are the pictures of the few materials that were used. Sorry, 2 pictures are somehow missing, but we'll follow up later on them. So this is the crushed or rubberized concrete. This is the virgin aggregates. Those are large size, 6-inch top size, and this is the railroad ballast size RRO1. And we have used some pretty innovative field imaging techniques. What we are doing is we are placing the aggregates separately on a blue background, and in with reference to this small white ball, we are extracting grayscale images, and from those grayscale images we are doing the binary extraction, and we are coming up with the shape parameters like aggregate texture or angularity index, those sort of stuff. For the time limitation, we haven't showed those results with the aggregate imaging properties, but we'll follow up later on. And in the task 3, we have construction of the field test pavement sections with selected aggregate subgrade materials. We'll be doing DCP testing to check the CBR values for the correct moisture requirement and the CBR requirement for the subgrade soil. Then we have also done nuclear density gauge for the density on the subgrade, aggregate subgrade or subbase, and 2 capping layers as well as on HMA layers. And for the modulus and steepness parameters, we have done the lightweight deflectometer test as well as geogauge. So this is the overall section that you can see. We have constructed 3 cells basically. Cell 1 and cell 2 has a soil subgrade of CBR1, and cell 3 is supposed to have a soil subgrade of CBR3. And the whole test strip is 345 feet long with 24 different combinations of pavements. These are the materials which we have discussed earlier that we have used: CSO1, CSO2, RRO1, and then we have also used CSO1 plus 40% wrap. That's a blended material that we have used in one section. And this is the capping material that we have used, the CA6 and wrap. These are some of the pictures. This is CA6 virgin materials collected from Vulcan materials in Kankakee. CSO2 crushed aggregates, again Vulcan materials, Lisbon. This wrap was collected from Mid-America Sand and Gravel. RRO1 was collected from Hansen Material Services. CSO1 plus 40% wrap, this blending was done by Iroquois Paving, and CSO1 recycled concrete was got from Champaign Spoke Ready Mix facilities. And this is the last material that we have received. That's the CaO2 material that's similar to the CA6 gradation, well-graded material with larger top size that was obtained from Riverstone Quarry. Now, laboratory material characterization. For laboratory material characterization, we have ran TX12, that's the smaller frame, 6-inch by 12-inch shear strength test, and also we have done the TX24 test, that is the 12-inch by 24-inch tests specimens. And this is the particle size distribution that we have obtained from the sieve analysis. If you see that CA6 had approximately 10% of fines, but somehow for the wrap we have ended up with the fractionated wrap, the coarser portion. That's why you see a very small amount of fines in the wrap CA6 gradation. This is the gradation for the RRO1, and this is the gradation for the CSO1. CSO1 is almost like uniformly graded. And this is the blended materials. For this particular material, we were just making some trials and errors things. For the spoke ready mix, the spoke ready mix had three different sizes of aggregates: large, medium, and finer portion. And we were mixing those different portions, whether we can come up with a specification, come up with a gradation that fits the prescribed band by the IDOT, but we couldn't do that, so we ended up using this particular gradation. These are some of the results that we have got. With the increasing confining pressure, we have increasing deviator stress. This was for the CA6 virgin aggregates. Then we have also ran some large specimen testing with the large track test setup. You see the comparison between the RRO1 aggregates, that the railroad ballast size, and this is the blended aggregate CSO1 plus 40% wrap. Because of the wrap and well graded and the presence of binder, I think the curve that you see for the deviator stress is fairly smooth. On the other hand, if you check the curve for the RRO1 aggregates, you will see a lot of kinks and jumps. That's because of the continuous particle orientation between the aggregate matrix. Now we'll move on to the pavement construction and quality control section. This is cell 1 constructed with RRO1 and CSO1. Each of the material have 4 different cells, and for cell 1 it was constructed on IBB1 or CBR1 subgrade. It had 21 inches of aggregate subgrade material on the north side and 3 inches of capping layer. The capping layers are alternative layers of CS6 versus CS6 wrap, and it will be easier to follow. All the odd numbers of cells have CS6 virgin materials as capping, and all the even numbers of cells have CS6 wrap as capping layer. Cell 2 was constructed with CSO2 and CSO1 plus 40% wrap. On the south side, we have 3 inches of additional capping layer, and on top of that, we have 4 inches of HMA layer. And cell 3 was constructed on top of IBB3, and it was constructed with CA6 wrap at the aggregate as the aggregate subgrade material, CA6 wrap and CaO2. And this is all the combination, the thickness combination that we have over that pavement. On the north side, we have section 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 10, 11, 12, 17, 18, 19, 20. It has a capping thickness of 3 inches and aggregate subgrade thickness of 53 centimeters. That means 21 inches of for the CBR1 subgrade soil. And for CBR3, we reduced the thickness of the aggregate subgrade. It was only 9 inches. So we started with the H drain construction. We dug a trench and connected to the we connected the new H drain to the old H drain. In this picture, what this guy is doing is actually he's flushing some color enhancing tablets with water so that they show up on the other end of the basin. He's basically checking whether the drainage is still working or not from the previous installation. And this is how we were doing the moisture adjustment. First, we were mixing the soil up to 12-inch depth. Then we were collecting the samples, and after collecting the sample, we were throwing it in the microwave and doing the moisture determination of moisture content. And this was the soil that we have been using in the field. It was particularly CLML type of soil. And this is the characteristics moisture density curve. You will see that how much with different moisture content, how much CBR are you achieving. Later on, we will correlate this thing to the field moisture and CBR performance that we were getting in terms of DCP, dynamic cone penetration tests. So these are the steps: initial tilling to mix the top 12 inches of soil, moisture content determination with microwave. Then if the moisture content does not satisfy the appropriate CBR requirement, we were again doing some initial compaction with the sheep's foot roller so that we can create some pockets for the water, and then we were adding water in those pockets of water where we were lacking the required amount of moisture. Then further tilling and compaction, conduct the DCP to determine the CBR profile, and then if CBR profile was not matching 1 or 3%, then repeat the steps from 4 to 6. This is an example of the moisture distribution over a cell after initial tilling, and you can see that the blue region is actually lacking the moisture to reach the IBV. The 15% was the requirement to reach the moisture content the IBV value of 1%. So this blue regions is the area actually where we need to apply more water. So that's what we did, adding moisture for target IBV and then severe evaluation of dynamic cone penetrometer. We did it again and again so that we achieve a uniform moisture profile and uniform severe profile. And then the fun part, this is the compaction of the IBV1 subgrade. We tried several options. This is the sheep's foot getting stuck. This is just a compact payloader. It is also getting stuck. This is a backhoe. In the meantime, we have also tried something like a roller compactor. That didn't work as well. And somehow we ended up with this one, excavator bucket. Yes, that's a sigh of relief. In some part, we have achieved as much as 10 inches of penetration. So this is the CBR profile. On CBR1 soil, we had added sufficient water, so that's why we didn't show the results. But for cell 3, we are showing the results, and this is the dashed line that you see is actually the line for CBR3. And as you can see, we have done a fairly good job in maintaining a uniform CBR profile over cell 3. This was on the north section. That means the unbound sections, section 17, 18, 19, 20. And for the HMS sections, also did a good job, section 21, 22, 23, and 24, CBR3. And the bottom values, I will not worry about those, because if you think about the pads of the sheep's foot, it itself is 2 to 3 inch high. So if you are doing your DCP at the bottom of that depression zone, that counts for the 2 to 3 inch. So that's why you have ended up pretty high CBR values at the bottom. And after we have achieved a fairly uniform CBR profile and moisture content, then we were sealing the surface of the subgrade with asphalt sealing to prevent further moisture escape. Then we were dumping the aggregates on top of that CBR1 or CBR3 subgrades and compacting those, and also we were checking the grade with a laser guided system. This is some of the construction steps that involved. On this one, you can see that we were spreading the large size CSO2 aggregates on IBV 1% soil, and this is the one that we are compacting the CSO2 aggregate subgrade material. While doing the compaction, we have seen some segregation. Sorry, this should not be gap graded, it should be uniformly graded. If you enlarge the picture, you will see better. In some portion, in this one, look at the bottom of the picture, it is some coarser portion of the aggregates, and then at the corner, you have ended up with some more finer portion. Similar with this picture, similar with the CSO1 plus 40% wrap blend. These are the layout, actual layout where we have tested and where we are showing the results. This is actually the quality control test spot. This is the sand bedding for the LWD and the geogauge measurements. And we have also used some aluminum foil for further GPR study. You know, we have 24 different cells, and each cell was 15. What happened?
They can still see it though.
Oh. We should find a way to find a way to project it for us. It's tiny. Okay.
Everybody?
Wow. Maybe just off. So if we can remember the formation, we'll see that each of the test sections out of those 24 ones, it was yeah. So each of those test sections was 15 feet long. So we were taking the rod measurements at 5 feet interval, like 5 feet and 10 feet, and we were defining it at east measurement and west measurement, and that's where we have placed the aluminum foil for future subsurface exploration with the ground penetrating radar. So these are the alternating capping layers that you can see. This one is CA6 virgin, alternating one is CA6 wrap, and placing the second lift of capping layer on the south side. Again, small video. We are spreading the CA6 dolomite on the south side in this one, compacting the capping layer. This is CA6 wrap. And this is the finished capping surface. And after we have finished that, for the south side, we have again maintained the asphalt sealing to prevent further moisture evaporation. Then this is the construction of the HMA layer. It was done in 2 lifts. For the surface lift, it was finer mixture. We have done some nuclear gauge density tests on those subsequent layers like subgrade, aggregate subgrade, capping layers, as well as on HMA. And it was done by Chad Ackenberg and Ron Wagner from Ida District 5. This is a sample nuclear gauge density results from the subgrade construction. As you can see that we have maintained a uniform subgrade compaction, uniform level of subgrade compaction. These are the results from the nuclear gauge density on cell 3 aggregate subgrade. If you can remember, we have used some large materials like CSO1, then CSO2, RRO1. For those large aggregate matrix, we have larger air voids, and that's why we couldn't do the nuclear gauge density test on those materials. But whatever we could do, as we can see that low densities were recorded for CSO1 plus 40% trap. It was a blended materials with very large top size, 3 inches top size. So that's why there were large voids associated in this aggregate matrix. So that's why we are getting low densities, and CaO2 virgin aggregates exhibited higher densities among these materials. And this is the laboratory compaction characteristics of CA6 virgin material and CA6 wrap. And we were trying to achieve standard densities since the density was quite high in case of CA6 virgin materials. So we were shooting for standard compaction density 140.5 PCF, and for the CA6 wrap it was 120.2. And the optimum moisture content for the CA6 virgin was achieved as 7.7%, and that one for the CA6 wrap was achieved as 5.5%. And as you can see, the nuclear gauge density results on the capping layer for the first lift. You'll see that compared to the lab density, the virgin aggregates were showing pretty low compaction values, relative compaction. Possible factors to low densities of virgin aggregates: the moisture content. Look at the moisture content, optimum moisture content in this one. CA6 virgin was 7.7%, and for this one, in the field we are getting pretty low moisture content for the CA6 virgin aggregates. It was, I think, 5.5 to 6%. So that may be a contributing factor. Also, the variability in compaction modes. You know, in the lab we are imparting impact loads, but in the field we are exerting the roller process, roller kind of motion to compact the specimen. So that might be another reason that we were hitting such low densities in case of virgin aggregates. For the CA6 wrap material, we had comparatively better level of field compaction, better relative compaction. Again, if you look at the moisture content of the CA6 wrap, the optimum moisture content was recorded 5.5%, and from the stockpile what we have seen, it was also containing something like 5.5 to 6% moisture content. So that's why we were obtaining comparatively higher relative density in case of CA6 wrap material. And judging by these nuclear gauge densities, what we thought we should be doing kind of a compaction growth curve to see whether we can improve the relative compaction that we are achieving in the field. So that's why we have done like 4 passes, 12 passes, 18 passes, and 24 passes, and we were checking the corresponding moisture dense compaction values, and we can see that at 18%, 18 number of roller passes, we achieved the highest amount of compaction that we can achieve in the field. And then we moved on the compaction of the capping layer. This is what we did on the second lift. As you can see that still, compared to the lab densities, we are achieving low densities in virgin materials, but compared to the lab ones, CA6 wrap was showing better compaction characteristics. Now the GeoGauge and LWD, at least 2 sets of tests were done with those GeoGauge and LWD on each of these layers, cell 3 subgrade, aggregate subgrade, except CSO2, because those were very large materials, very large aggregate, very large voids in the aggregate matrix and also in the capping layers. This is the result that we can see for the subgrade surface moduli. You can see it's an acceptable range. If you just convert it to the empirical relationship like 1500 CBR, so CBR3 you will end up with 4.5 KSI values. That means 20 to 30 megapascal. That's what you can see here. So we have maintained a fair level of surface moduli, and as you can see, compared to the subgrade, aggregate subgrade was higher, and the lower values that you see in section 20 and 21, those were the corner sections. So what we are speculating that it might be because of the moisture localization issue. Again, judging by the 5 materials used as aggregate subgrade materials, the surface moduli, in case of the surface moduli on top of CBR1 subgrade, we have 3 materials, RRO1, CSO1, CSO1 plus 40% rep. Compared to the blended aggregates, compared to the recycled aggregates, the virgin aggregates railroad ballast site showed higher moduli values, surface moduli values. And also, if you check the 2 materials constructed on the CBR3 subgrade, both CaO2 and Ca6 had similar surface moduli and lower modulus values, as we have already discussed moisture localization in the corner section. And we have already shown you 2 pictures showing some segregation. So I think that maybe because of the segregation we have obtained some lower values, lower surface moduli values in case of CSO1 and CSO1 plus 40% RAP. And in case of GeoGauge results, we saw some wide variability between results between several sets. So that's why we were thinking what to do, and we ended up with a box plot. And with those box plot, we were trying to minimize the variability in the surface moduli values. And whatever you see onwards in the next slides is basically the average of the 25th and 75th quartile values. Those are the average of these 25th and 75th quartile values are reported in the subsequent slides as the GeoGauge average moduli. And if you see this picture, even though there is variability, large amount of variability, you will always see that Ca6 RAP has always ended up with higher moduli compared to the virgin aggregates. Similar results were obtained for LWD moduli, but one interesting observation, LWD comparatively showed fairly consistent results. And this is the surface moduli values. These are the surface moduli values for the entire sections, 24 sections for the first lift up capping. And on the left sections, you have the Ca6 virgin materials. On the right sections, you will see the Ca6 RAP capping materials results. And you will see the comparison. In most of the cases, Ca6 RAP had higher surface moduli values. Also, for the second lift of capping layer on the south side, we see similar pattern. Ca6 RAP had the higher surface moduli, and it is also found in the literature that Ca6 RAP is generally have the higher potential, higher moduli responses. We also did some FWD modulus testing, FWD testing, and we are analyzing those results. What I am showing here is just a sample results, some sample results. And now we are moving on to the accelerated pavement testing with Atlas. Some pictures showing what we did. And these are the results that we have got from the accelerated pavement testing. Surprisingly, RAP did considerably well as an aggregate subgrade material, but I think we have found the answer why it did. Section 18 failed at 250 passes, also CA6 RAP aggregate base material, on top of CA6 RAP capping. On top there was CA6 RAP capping. And in this one, in section 17, we had a virgin material capping, 3 inches of virgin material capping with 9 inches of CA6 RAP material. For the CaO2 material, it failed comparatively quickly at 150 and 125 passes. These are just the modular responses that we plotted, whether we can correlate the performances. CA6 RAP, as usual, had the higher modular values. CA6 and CaO2 and CA6 virgin, both of them had similar modular values because they're both well graded, but just the one CaO2 has higher top size aggregates. These are the pictures at 100 passes, pictures of rotting at 100 passes, taking at the same resolution, section 17, 18, 19, and 20. And you will see that compared to the virgin aggregates, as a capping layer, RAP had higher deformation potential, but as an aggregate base, it survived more. What we are thinking that when we did the sieve analysis, we can see that there was very small amount of fines, very negligible amount of fines compared to what IDOT used. They have, I think, 15 to 20% of fines maybe in those RAP materials. But in our case, we have ended up with fractionated RAP with no fines. And instead of the fines, we have binder. So that might be the contributing factor, CA6 RAP performing better in terms of aggregate base performance.
Not typical CA6 RAP you would find. That's one thing that we finally discovered, that actually what we see is more of the fractionated one with the coarse aggregate. Coarse material mostly. If you think about RAP, and those of you working with RAP, you will know that the finer parts of it, you have higher binders. So actually we look at the less finer, more coarse aggregate side. So one thing we're comparing is how representative of this is as a RAP, what you would put normally as an aggregate subgrade. That's something we're questioning now and further collecting data out in the field with the DCP that we are doing.
Yes.
That, as well as I think Hassan will mention, we will end up running this cell again for the tests to be conducted right next to
Yes.
this wheel pad. Another one.
Right next to that wheel path, the failed wheel path, we'll run another test to check if there is any effect on the effect of freeze thaw cycles maybe. And also what I am thinking from a laboratory perspective, since we don't have any fines, we can do like an engineered gradation. Just use the same gradation of RAP that we have used, see the permanent deformation performance, and then increase the fines content like 10%, 20%, and see how the performance is differing with the inclusion of fines. These are the comparison between the cells, and only east side results are shown here, section 17, 18, 19, 20. These are the maximum route width compared to the number of passes that you will see. And you will see that section 17 constructed with the aggregate subbase has survived way longer than the other materials. Subsurface rotting, that is also an important thing to assess. So that's why we were doing the GPR, ground penetrating radar measurements, non-destructive assessment of subsurface rotting. GPR data was collected on the 4 sections that we have tested. Data collected was in a logarithmic scale till failure, like 1, 10, 100. and GPR images for only east sections were presented. The orange line shows the surface interface, the red line shows the aggregate subgrade interface, and the blue line is showing the subgrade interface. These are some of the results. We haven't done any conclusions with the GPR results. We are just showing it to you. We have done a modified GPR track. We have constructed a GPR track. Basically what we do, kind of a rail thing. We mount it on top of the frame, and in the transverse direction we move the GPR a couple of times, like 4 or 5 times, and see how the GPR is scanning it, giving out the responses. We haven't reached any conclusion yet. We'll feel more comfortable once we have the trenching data, if we can correlate these GPR images to the subsurface routing. Temperature variation in pavement layers. This is another interesting thing we did in the past winter. And this is the layout that we have used. In cell 2, in one of the HMS sections, we have installed 4 temperature probes at different layers. One was at 2 inches, another one was at 9 inches, and then another one was in 19 inches, and then finally on top of that subgrade we have 31 inches deep. And all of these temperature probes were connected to the Atlas control trailer data acquisition system, and we are collecting the temperature data. And this is how it looks like. The bottom one is actually showing the Illinois State Water Survey air temperature, and the top one is showing the HMA surface temperature, HMA temperature. And for this one, the temperature probe was installed 2 inches below the HMA surface. The reason I am comparing it to the ISWS air temperature is because if you see that the temperature probe in the HMA is actually above grade, so it will be more representative. I thought it that compared to the air temperature, but obviously it didn't work out. The air temperature had comparatively higher variation of temperature compared to the HMA temperature, and based on the average values, if you think like that, we are ending up with only 2 freeze-thaw cycles. But if you discretize it on a day-to-day basis, you will end up obviously with higher number of freeze-thaw cycles. So I'm looking at literature how to come up with the actual number of freeze-thaw cycles. Also some more data. But if you compare to the ISWS temperature data at 4 inches below the sod, you'll see that ISWS has reported very small variation in the temperature compared to our results. Our results are showing more variation. Part of the reason maybe they're using well-drained materials, and because of those well-drained materials, they don't have moisture issues. And if you don't have moisture issues, you don't have much of a temperature variation. Similar results were also found in case of aggregate subgrade and subgrade layers. Current and future tasks. The remaining tasks, finish Atlas testing on the remaining sections, as well as rerun the Atlas on top of the cell 3 sections that we have already tested to verify our findings. Conduct additional LWD, GeoGauge, and FWT tests to check the freeze-thaw effects on the elastic response of the pavements. Evaluate subsurface plotting using GPR and compare those GPR results with the trenching of the failed sections, and correlate pavement performance to the layer properties. And establishing field design for selected aggregate materials based on those results. That will be the project end output. And I would like to acknowledge all of the people that we have got help from. Obviously, IDOT for sponsoring the study. Then Dr. Devakant Mishra, Chad Arkenberg and Ron Wagner. Thanks them for excellent record keeping for the nuclear density gauge results as well as doing all those tests. Open Road Paving Construction Crew, UIC Transportation Geotechnics Research Group, Jim Meister for running the Atlas. I would also like to thank Professor Awkadi for generously letting us use the GPR, and as well I would also like to thank Peng Cheng for helping us with the GPR. And still the list remains incomplete. Thank you. That's all I had to say.
Questions?
Yes.
What kind of wheel loading were you running on the Atlas?
The wide base one, just single wheel.
I know 10 kip, 9 kip,
10 kip.
10
10
kip.
kip. At 5 miles per hour.
Have you done FWD testing yet?
Yes. In the summer, last summer, we've done some FWD tests on the HMA.
You know, one of the issues you hit comparing LWD and FWD is the stress states that you're generating with an LWD are very, very small. What was your plate diameter?
6 inches.
6?
I mean, you can switch in between two diameters.
Yeah.
So we use the smaller diameter to achieve higher stress states.
For the same surface pressure, I think you'll find that your moduli value, yeah.
We didn't use that one on the subject. We used 12 inches
On the subgrid, we have used 12 inches. On the capping layers, on the granular materials, we have used a smaller size radius. And we were also trying to do the LWD on the HMA. Actually, I have those results with the deflection dressing, but I haven't looked at it yet. And we were trying to reach that 100 psi stress level with that LWD with higher drop height and additional load.
What's failure?
Failure in those sections?
Yeah, what would you consider failure?
It was decided to be 3 inches. 3 inches, yeah. 3 inches of project.
Stroke is 4 inches.
The stroke
You
was
go
4
up to 4 inches. But again, up to 4 inches you cannot go because that's the stroking out basically of the machine.
After how many passes?
In one case he went up to 1,000 something.
1,000.
Right.
And another one, 250.
Again,
And the rest of the two.
We only tested one cell and the working platform of one cell, which we will repeat. And so based on that, we had anywhere from 125 to 1,000, correct?
Yes.
Tests. When we go to the south sections, where actually you see on the south side the additional 3 inches of the capping, which is actually now subbase. It becomes 6 inches of subbase on top of having the subgrade. That's where we put the 4 inches of HMA. And that's where we did the FWD testing. And he had one slide showing the back-calculated layer moduli. Actually, some of those numbers matched with LWD moduli you showed from individual layer testing.
Subgrade and aggregate subgrade surface moduli was pretty close.
Of the pavement working platform models. Yep. I thought this was a great picture, actually. You could use that for promotions.
But you played with the picture, right? That's not the...
No, it was a cloudy day, and he went to top of the one of the construction equipment.
Huh? No Photoshop? I think he did something.
Yeah, I did some Photoshop. I mean.
But it's good.
Yeah, that's me in the picture showing. Take the picture here, this way. All right. Thank you for coming.